Join me in a candid interview with Jenn Willey from Wet Cement. She helps others conquer fear to drive growth. She shifts mindsets and behavior through inspirational stories of her unique career journey coupled with research and insights. As founder of Wet Cement, Jenn is proud to be one of the only 50 US CEOs leading a disability-owned, a woman-owned, certified business. Jennifer is incredible soul. She's giving, she's kind, she absolutely captivates you with her true spirit. I'm honored to know her. I'm honored to see her in action, and I'm so incredibly happy she's going to share some of her insights with us today.
Good.
That's good. Well, thank you for spending some time and talking about confidence and just continuing the journey for a lot of the women that were part of the experience. And I was thinking it's such a great topic, and obviously you're the expert and you spoke of it. And I wanted to offer something because a lot of the feedback that came is people are struggling, especially now what's happening with the states and the state of the economy. Just the landscape is really nerve-wracking, and I feel that the confidence is really dropping in a lot of high-level professionals. Like even yesterday, I spoke with somebody from the Women's Connection, and she shared that despite her experience, despite all of the success she has, her confidence is really low. And I said, well, wait for it. I have a need. I'm speaking with Jennifer. We can offer something. So I'm really grateful for your time on that.
I'm happy to help.
Perhaps maybe even just address it the way it is that the times are very chaotic and it's nerve-wracking, right? Like companies are cutting costs and a lot of consultants, even for myself, I've noticed like all of the leads start going down, right? It's just very challenging. So despite success, despite having experience, it's inevitable to feel that I'm not enough or I'm not doing everything. So what is your take on that?
Yeah, well, you and everybody else is not alone who feels like their confidence has dropped substantially over the course of the past few months with so many changing market dynamics. And even you add in things like the changing rate of technology and how there's so much talk about generative AI taking over people's jobs, and it all snowballs so that we have women were already in a place where they had lower confidence than their male counterparts in the workplace, based on the research that we did with a team of behavioral scientists from Wharton. But now you add all of this on top of it, and it's just completely overwhelming. And I think this is one of those times where it's so critical that we have to take perfectionism and throw it out the window. And we need to adopt the rules of progress over perfection. We need to adopt the 80% rule, that we are going to say, you know what, if I'm getting the B- right now, that's good enough. I don't need to be 100% every day, every month, especially during these really challenging times.
I like that what you said, even if it's a B minus, because I feel especially women, we always want to be the A plus. I don't know who we're proving. Are we proving our mothers? I'm actually hosting this experience called I work with the archetypes of Carl Jung for branding communications, and we're doing one for the mother archetype because it's kind of the foundation of everything. And I feel a lot of it comes from that wisdom that we're always trying to prove, always trying to shine for someone. Do you go through those moments of dipping and finding yourself pulling yourself out?
Oh my God, absolutely. And I've been going through it really, like I'm just on that roller coaster that you say since January of this year. It's hard for anybody who's reliant upon validation from other people, who care about making a difference and an impact and helping to lift others up and seeing so much that's not necessarily going in the direction that we want to see it, that I've been spiraling myself sometimes. And when I start finding that I'm circling the drain, what I really try and do is remind myself of the past successes and achievements that I should be proud of, and remind myself that we are in a very unique time right now. And the third thing I remind myself of constantly is how lucky I am, and that I look at so many other people with such bigger problems around the world, and it allows me to really take stock of just how amazing and wonderful my life is, even when it's not. And I think that having a regular gratitude practice, whether it's something formal or you just once a day at some point try and say, okay, what's going right in my life today? And sometimes it's as simple as, I have one of my closest friends and neighbors um, randomly had major emergency gastrointestinal surgery yesterday or 2 days ago. And there was nothing wrong with her before this. She just got bad stomach pains and major surgery. Yet everything was fine right the day before. And so some of those things we could be grateful sometimes is even just, I'm relatively healthy today. And I am not in a hospital bed, and I'm not in a tremendous amount of pain. And so I'm grateful for that.
You know, we were
I'm
just,
gonna let my dog in so she
yes,
stops
yes, yes. What
barking
kind of
here.
dog do you have?
I have Snowball here. I'll introduce you to her. Hold on. She's here. I don't know if you can see her.
What
Come
is
on.
she? Is she a Maltese?
She is a Cavapoo.
Ah, I
And
have a
she just
Maltese. He's very similar.
oh,
Hi, Snowball. Oh,
and
she's
she's blind, so that's why she
oh,
walked into the computer. Of
that's so cute. Thank you for sharing her with us. I love that.
course.
You know, I was thinking how important one of the feedbacks we receive is the including the just the holistic view of business and personal growth and some of the things that we do too really because there's no business success, there's no you will never be successful if you're not healthy. That's the bottom line, right? Like if your mental state is not right, if your body is not connected with your overall being, is there anything that you do? And it doesn't need to be something extravagant. As I said, sometimes it's just gratitude. How do you keep your sanity? You run a lot of things.
The way I do it is I try and take a walk outside every day. Even if it's cold and terrible out today, it's lovely and it makes me so happy to get that vitamin D. I have started a much more regular yoga practice because that helps me stay grounded and stay focused. Um, and I don't try and set expectations for myself of how often I'm going. I just try and go whenever I can. I try and find other exercise that gets those endorphins going through my body and makes me forget about everything else for a bit. So things like I love Zumba, and
Mm,
Zumba is so great because when you're focused on choreography, you can't think about perhaps the political climate or what's
mm.
happening with economic conditions. You're just dancing and having fun. So I'd say for me, it's really about exercise in a variety of ways.
And I remember we were talking, I'm shifting thread, but I wanted to ask you a lot of things, but I want to be cognizant of your time. We were talking about AI in your last event. And I know there's a lot of talk about it, but I feel there's a part of the discourse that is really missing on the human skills and elevating our human skills. And this is where confidence comes from as well, right? Quite often we get into the rut of doing the job, getting the business or going after the strategic plan, and we forget that we need to also upscale our soft skills. And one of the things that keeps coming up from a lot of angles is, I don't know if it's COVID related, I don't know if you agree, is the communication skills right now. It's almost like everybody's on edge. I don't know if you've seen that. Everybody's very touchy. There's a little bit of tension that's translating perhaps from the outside world into our communication skills. Anything you can share on that front, and how do we elevate there?
Well, I think from what you talked about, bridging generative AI and communication that is something that you could use, and I do every single day of my life to start and get that draft version of the communication and say things like, make sure that it is warm or positive. And you could work in the opposite way. You could write out your message and then say to ChatGPT or the Gen AI platform of your choice, review this message to make sure that there's nothing that can be taken the wrong way or seen as negative if you're not trying to give feedback or anything like that.
Mhm.
And so I couldn't agree more that communication is so critical to success and to feeling good. And but this is one of those places generative AI can really help. Actually, I just led a workshop where we're talking about um, uncomfortable conversations and needing to deliver feedback and how to approach these so you can be more courageous when you're doing it. And one of the pieces of advice that I shared with everyone is to really start using generative AI to role play difficult conversations.
Mm.
After you role play it, you can do it again and say, give me different responses this time. And then you can do it again. And it's that practice that will build that muscle memory of how you want to handle these different scenarios and have ways that feel right for each and every one of those lanes. And you can even ask Gen AI to be your communication coach and review how you performed in each one of those role plays and recommendations on what you could and should do differently.
It seems that you obviously run a lot of workshops. How do you people usually approach you? Is it like a functional role that they ask you to come and deliver a workshop on? Like,
I wish that I had one answer for you, and that would be much easier for me to focus on my target audience. But it's everything from most of my work, I will say, is either people who have seen me speak somewhere or attended a workshop, or they're referred to me and word of mouth.
Mhm.
And so it might be like I had a call yesterday with the head of innovation and inclusivity for one of the world's largest staffing companies. And it was because another client of mine was meeting with her about something. And she was saying, I'm looking to develop a training academy for diverse suppliers so that they can be more capable and ready to work with a large organization like ours. And that client said, oh, you got to work with Jenn Willey. I've got to introduce the two of you. So that is a very typical way that I end up meeting people, but sometimes it's through their HR organizations. Sometimes it's through learning and development. It might be conference organizers who are looking for someone to bring a unique perspective to their conference. And then even meeting and event professionals who are looking to create a meaningful, impactful, and actionable experience for people who are attending big offsites or conferences for their teams, or even incentive trips if
Mhm.
someone's a superstar.
Mhm. Have you ever been in a situation where, because these seems to be little large corporations, like a larger entity, because there's a lot of women in the service delivery business, and these are businesses that are truly supporting the economy. We're talking about like holistic health, naturopaths, right? And they don't always have the means, or they're not part of a larger professional organization. Have you ever been in a situation where you've delivered workshops or somehow they were organized? Because that's actually one of the things that we want to do. We want to organize the diversity of these service professionals and give them access to people like yourself. Is that something you've done?
So it's amazing that you asked that. Just this week, I made the decision that I am launching a Fearless Growth Academy
Ah,
for small business owners that will cover off on everything that we normally cover in what I call the fearless fundamentals of confidence, communication,
mhm,
connection, control, and culture, but all related to growing your business and being the kind of inclusive leader that you want to be.
mhm,
Because exactly what you said, there's so many people who would say, oh, I'd love to come to one of your workshops, but it's generally reserved for those people who are part of that corporation or who are attending a specific conference or part of an association. And so the vision of what we're going to be doing is creating a series where there will be monthly workshops that are progressive and all build on each other. Everything from sales, strategy, marketing, customer engagement, your own mindset and understanding imposter syndrome, building your network, enhancing your personal brand, thought leadership, and so much more, negotiating, all of these areas that we as small business owners need to develop, but most people have not had the benefit of, like I have, where I spent 20 years as a sales strategy and marketing executive, and before that being a journalist, and having those communication skills. And so I see so many business owners struggling to say, I am the best, just like you said, I know that I'm an incredible naturopath, but it's the running the business that's really challenging for me.
And I think you've touched something that it's so important, and I know it was pivotal for myself as well, is sometimes we don't realize what we have, like the experience, because we keep running, especially as women, we're like, just to the next thing, let me get this done, let me get this done, and we forget that we have all these skills, all these achievements. I love your confidence journal, for example. Every Friday it's in my calendar, because we, even going back, like one of the things I did is I went back to my university, because I said, that was one of the biggest investments I've done in my life. How can I benefit from that network, from that experience that I had? And people don't think this way. We don't see the resources necessarily as our achievements, right? As well.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of having a network and relationships like this, and having mentors and peer mentors and proteges even, because when you are brainstorming or trying to help solve a challenge for someone else, research shows, actually it was a study that was done by the Chicago Booth School of Business and Wharton, that showed that people are able to enhance their strategic thinking and problem solving abilities more by trying to help someone else solve their problem than they would even if they got advice from an expert on that very topic, because all the neurons start firing very differently when you are solving a problem for someone else rather than for yourself. And so, to your point, being able to get creative about how can I feel better, or how do I pick up my confidence when it's on the floor, or what are ways that I can strengthen my business by trying to help others, you end up helping yourself.
How do you level up, Jen? How do you grow?
Well, for me, it's easy in that it's been baked into my life, and I'll explain how. I have clients that I work with, one of them for long periods of time. One of them I've been working with, a global association called DPAA, stands for Digital Place-Based Out Association. I've been working with them since the beginning. I helped them to build a women's empowerment advisory board and program. And then we're also building out these fearless leadership workshops. Every quarter, we're doing workshops on new skills and areas and challenges that people are facing. And so, at the very least, every quarter, I have to come up with entirely new content, because I've been working with the same organization for 7 years. I can't say, I have an idea. Let's do this workshop that we already did 4 years ago.
Yeah.
There is somebody who is already in that. So it's constantly challenges me to think about what comes next. But I think for anybody and everybody, for anybody who might be listening to this, it can also just be about how can I share something new or insightful on social media to help in terms of my own personal brand and the value that I'm bringing to the table. And so you can challenge yourself to say, okay, I'm going to put one thing a week on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever it is that you think would be valuable information for someone else. But to find that valuable information for someone else, you got to find it for yourself.
I like that. Do you use one of the things I use is like I have a set of values and I always go by my values. So quite often people say, "Oh my God, I don't know what to post." I'm like, so much content has to come out of people, and I usually give them the advice, and I'm like, just tap into your values, whatever those key traits of your character of your brand are. Is that something that resonates with you? Is that how you may approach your content creation?
Oh, absolutely. And actually, one little trick on top of that that I use is I set Google alerts for those topics that are critical to me. So everything from gender equity
Hmm.
to women's leadership to gender inequity, to, well, I'm very focused on those things, but even other areas like disability inclusion, leadership skills. And so every day, these things can just pop into my inbox. And sometimes I don't get to them all. Sometimes I don't get to any of them. I also try to sign up for newsletters for organizations that I find a lot of value that I'm getting. So whether it's Harvard Business Review, uh, the Wharton newsletter, SHRM, which is Society of HR Managers. So again, it's stuff that's popping into my feed on a regular basis that's helping me. And the other thing that's amazing that we can all do is when we share our values with the people in our life and people know who you are, they start sharing with you.
Hmm.
So nearly any time somebody reads an interesting article around what's happening with women in the workplace or those terrible words, diversity, equity, and inclusion, that nobody's allowed to say, it's like Voldemort. Uh, in those situations, people send me articles all the time. Oh, Jen, I thought you'd be interested in this. And so it's an amazing thing. We have to obviously return the favor for others as well. But we can all help make each other stronger and better the more that we manifest who it is that we want to be.
I like that. The newsletters, I started valuing that because people put so much effort into collecting content and it's a lot of work. So you start realizing it's such a valuable resource. And I think people overlook that.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
absolutely.
And last, you've mentioned something about disability, and that's a topic that is very dear to me. And I work with a few organizations, and people don't realize what a large percentage of people globally are actually disabled and how the workforce is actually overlooking people with disabilities because we have an aging population globally and these people want to work and we just have to accommodate to needs that will actually benefit all of us. How do we tell these people about confidence? How do we talk about confidence to people? And I come to that because Stephen Hawking said that he was a better physicist because he was disabled, because he found strength in that and he became creative of how he's approaching his studies and his work. How do we, because we are able to, obviously when you're able you have a different perspective. And I had a concussion. I still am suffering from a concussion for a second time, and that impaired my cognitive ability. Sometimes I don't have energy, and I have a brand new appreciation for my body and a, being able.
Mhm.
But these people that are born with this, have you worked with groups like that? What is your experience?
So I am a member of Disability In, which is an organization supporting disability-owned business enterprises. Um, and I've attended their workshops. I've led workshops for them as well. And I actually led a workshop for them around, for all the disability-owned businesses around confidence and imposter syndrome. And what was really interesting to me is that the intersectionality that comes along with, like in our case, being a woman and then having a disability, it causes that much more self-doubt
Mm-hmm.
and limits our abilities. Because what happens with the disability community in many cases is the opposite of Stephen Hawking. And it's people feeling like, well, I'm not really disabled because I'm not disabled enough. There's other people who are more disabled than me. And so I learned this when I first became a part of this disability community, where I said, at the time, my only disability was that I'm hearing impaired. And I said, I don't really feel like that's a disability. And it feels like I'm, sort of cheating to think of myself as part of this community. And they said, oh, that's funny because we have somebody who's deaf who, feels the same exact way.
Mm.
And we have somebody who is in a wheelchair here who's a quadriplegic who feels exactly the same way. And so we all have this feeling that, nobody has every possible disability that there is. And so in our mind, many times we're like, well, I'm not really as disabled as this. And so that's where that imposter syndrome
Mhm.
starts sneaking up. But I do think that there is so much power in having grace for yourself and for other people when you are living with a disability in some way, and how it teaches you that I just can't do everything all the time
Mhm.
perfectly. And I need to give myself that grace that I'm going to do the best that I can. And I might solve this problem in a new way. And I might be able to show empathy to others in a way that no one else is giving. And so, and it builds an awareness around disability inclusion for other disabilities that you may not even have. And I'll give you an example. I was on a workshop this week where one of the people on, it was like a big webinar. I was a student in the webinar. And one of the speakers was blind. And one of the other speakers, who was like the moderator, was showing some slides and then said, okay, well, there's a lot of information on this slide. Just read the slide, everybody. I'm not going to say it all to you. And I immediately felt that, oh my gosh, how could you do that? You know that there's somebody who is visually impaired who's on this call and has low vision or blindness. Um, and being able to share opens up things for other people to feel comfortable sharing as well. So like being hearing impaired, I read lips. And so when I'm on a call and everybody's got their video off, I
Mm.
have to say to people, if you have any kind of neurodiversity issue that doesn't allow you to enable your camera right now, I totally understand. Keep your camera off. But if not, I'd really appreciate you putting your camera on so that I can read your lips, because it's going to be a lot easier for me to understand you. Even with the closed captioning, like I have closed captioning enabled right now on my computer, but I can't look at your face and look at closed captioning at the same time.
Yeah.
So I mainly just use the closed captioning, if there's somebody who I'm really struggling with understanding, or if they have their video off. But by doing that and sharing those things, I've had people share back with me other things that they need in terms of accommodations to help them feel more included.
It's almost like we have to empower ourselves to speak up. So, because we are responsible for our own inclusion as well, right? Like
Hmm.
how would people know if we don't speak up? We have to have that voice. And
Absolutely.
it's interesting what you said. I actually never thought of it, that we may feel, because it's exactly like that. I go into places and I know I have a cognitive, something has changed after the second concussion, right? But I, exactly like you, I'm like, no, no, I'm fine because I can move and I can walk and I can do all these other things. And it's like everything else. You never have enough degrees. You never have everything. Ah, such a great lesson, Jen. Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing, because
Of course.
we don't share these things. I don't
Well,
think.
and I will tell you and anybody who might be listening, if you ever have a chance to go to the annual Disability In Conference, it is the most empowering and enlightening experience of your life. For no other reason, they have great content, but you walk through the halls of whatever hotel it's being hosted at, or I walk through the halls because I have the ability to walk through the halls. But then I'll see groups of people in wheelchairs, all of them in wheelchairs and all wheeling around and laughing. And then I'll see a group of people who are all deaf and they're all signing to each other and laughing, and the next one and the next one. And then you'll even have speakers who are quadriplegics who've started multi-million dollar companies. And you
Mhm.
think, oh my gosh, if they don't even have the ability to type or write or do a lot of the things on their own, and certainly to be able to get themselves where they want, and they can create an organization that's making such a huge impact. Well, anything's possible.
What a great way. What a great way to end, Jen. So empowering, because we sometimes we go into the self-pity, right? It's inevitable. And then these stories remind us that everything is possible. It's just how far are you willing to go for yourself, to bet on yourself as well.
And what path you go down. You know, the path that you thought you were going might get closed and there's a detour. And so rather than just saying like, oh gosh, I'm never going to get there. You know, if you were driving a car and there was a detour, you're not like, I'm done now. I just have to go home. Like, no, it might take me a little bit longer, but I'm still going to get there. I'll just find another way.
Yeah. And I think the good things take a little bit of time, like it needs time to grow and has to be nourished. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, patience is a virtue, truly, in business. You have to wait. It's not gonna happen fast.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jen. I